What is up, guys? It is your boy Winster, and I'm back at it again with another video. Today, we are talking about board breakers in this new format for 2023, and which ones you should be playing and which ones should you be dusting to the side. But before we get into this content, guys, if you guys enjoy this type of content and want to see more, make sure that you guys hit the subscribe button and also turn on the notification bell if you guys want to stay up to date with all the content that does drop on this channel. Hopefully I can help you decide on what type of board breakers you should be playing, but let's jump right into the video. So here is the tier ranking, the absolute best of the best. So these are phenomenal in almost every single matchup. Right underneath that are great in most situations. Great, phenomenal cards, pretty good in most situations, but not the cream of the crop. Okay, but not bad. So good cards, not phenomenal in every situation, not great, but not bad. Flat out bad cards. And last but not least, listen, bro, that's a little bit too much copium. Do not play these cards. We're going to be talking about Book of Eclipse. I do think that the recent banning of a Rice Heart really hurt this card's performance, right? This card was a huge tool when going versus the Kashtira strategy. And it's really good in a lot of other situations too, not being once per turn, not being a targeting card like its counterpart Book of Moon. But now that a Rice Heart is gone, this may fall out of popularity. It's still good. However, there are some downsides to it. You're giving your opponent so much advantage. But there are ways to play this card defensively and offensively. So I don't think it's an actual bad card because of what I just explained. Soulbreaker. So I do think this is good, even with a Rice Heart being banned. I think it's great in most situations because of the versatility of the card. I do think it's one of the better cards in the current format. However, since the new format just came along and Unchained arguably being the best deck, because you can't put Link monsters face down, I do think that this is going to fall a little bit in the tier list. I would say the previous format, I would say this would be the cream of the crop, best of the best. But now that a Rice Heart is gone, I would say that it is great in most situations. Book of Moon, I think it falls in the same area as Book of Eclipse, but it is a targeting card with a lot of protection these days where cards can be targeted by other cards. So because of that, I don't think it is like a great in most situations. But I do think it is an okay card, but not bad, It's definitely not bad, but I do think that it's okay. So Forbidden Chalice. I think Forbidden Chalice falls in the same category as Infinite Impermanence. But the good side to this is that you don't open yourself up to Thrust, which is probably one of the more popular cards in the current format. It negates a card effect on the field, being a monster. Yes, it gains attack, but who cares? You're negating the effect, which is by far the most important part of this card. I think it falls in the same category as Book of Moon. Just negating effects sometimes is not enough, right? Sometimes you need to look away the monster and continue to extend. So because of that, I do think it's okay, but not bad. Change of Heart. I think this is a good old classic card, right? There's not really much to discuss. I remember when this card came off of the ban list, which was a couple of formats ago, and it was crazy how expensive these cards were. And even in like a common, like these cards are like $2-3. But with its non-targeting and just takes control of a monster, it's just such a strong card. I don't think it's like phenomenal because it's very simple, taking control. But its versatility is pretty good, right? It gets rid of a big problematic boss monster on your opponent's side. And I do think that it's like way better than these other cards when you're just simply trying to break a board. So I think that it is okay, but not bad. And I think that it's better than these two cards. Cosmic Cyclone. Cosmic Cyclone, phenomenal card. Obviously, being a quick play, it could go over cards like Anti-Spell Fragrance. There could only be one. Goes in match. All these continuous floodgates that your opponent could, set up to oppress you and not allow you to play this Yu-Gi-Oh card game. But it comes at a big cost, 1,000 life points, and we're in a game that life points do matter at the end of it, and that could be winning or losing in your round, could really change it. So I do think there are better options, like Harpy's Feather Duster that destroys everything. Yes, it is not a quick play, and you might get slumped over by good old anti-spell fragrance, but I think the life points do play a very big role in my choosing of this card. I don't think it's bad because there are a lot of spells and traps that get their effects in the grave, and Harpy's Feather Duster can allow those cards to go off, but Cosmic Cyclone banishes the target. So I think in those situations where you know for sure you're going to be able to OTK your opponent, yes, I do think it's a good card and allows you to get rid of a problematic, spell or trap. But if you don't have game on board, I don't think it's going to be a good card. So I think that it is okay, but not bad. Evenly matched. Evenly matched ever since its inception, which at the time I wasn't playing the game. I remember my roommate just telling me like, yo, this card is coming out and it is a broken fucking card. Right. And I remember reading it, and at first I really didn't understand it. Of what makes it so good is just like banishes everything face down, like, all right, whatever. But now that I'm like heavy into the game and I understand the strength of evenly match and how one person feels once they hear standby, main, battle phase, end of battle, the shivers that you get up your motherfucking spine is insane. So I do think that this is still a phenomenal card, great in most situations. And I personally think it is one of the best of the best. It just leaves such a long-lasting impression on the game. And on top of that, it's still a broken card. If you mix this card with Dark Ruler No More, it is insane. It is insane. So I do think that this card is the absolute best of the best in my personal opinion. Triple Tactics Thrust, like I mentioned earlier, I think one of the more popular strategies, right? Going second, if your opponent activated a card at any point in time on your turn and they control a monster, you could search any normal spell or trap. Considering that could be any board breaker that you need. You could get Dark Ruler No More, you could get Harpy's Feather Duster, Lightning Storm Raigeki, Triple Tactics Talons, the list goes on what you could search for this card. If you don't want to search for board breaker, you could get an important combo piece and search it out that way. It is just too strong of a card. It becomes all these cards where you only have to run one target of each. So it kind of clears out your extra deck or your side deck, makes room for other cards. I think it's too good because of that. And on top of that, it is more than not going second going to be an active card. I do think that it is one of the best cards in the current format. Winged Dragon of Ra Sphere Mode. Winged Dragon of Ra Sphere Mode, such a good card. Going second. However, it can be situational. Reason being is because you have to tribute 3 monsters. And on top of that, you have to commit to the normal summon. So if you play a deck that needs a normal summon, you're more than likely not going to play this card. So because of that, I do think that the card, as strong as it is and how easily it could board wipe cards, is just too much of a commitment when you're trying to board break. Because of that, because of such a huge commitment, because of how much you have to clear in order to bring it out, I don't think that it is the right card to have in your sideboard in the current format. Because there's such a commitment, because of all those variables, I do think that it is a bad card. Dark Ruler No More usually gets paired up with Evenly Matched because it is super easy to go off. Yes, you won't kill your opponent, but they won't be able to respond with monster effects. So cards like Barone, cards like Boros Savage Dragon, all these other cards that, negate Omni-wise won't be able to negate this card. Yes, the downfall, you won't be able to kill your opponent, but who cares when you're going to board wipe them? They've used all their resources to mount their crazy board that they end on, and just to lose to 1 Dark Ruler No More. The ease of being able to kill your opponent, or at least putting them on a 1-turn clock, and if you do Dark Ruler No More, go to battle phase and then drop the evenly on them, there's not really much your opponent's going to be able to do to retaliate. Because of not being able to kill, I don't think it makes it a great card. But because the ease that you're able to drop this and the way the current format is, there's not a lot of Omni negates other than like Barone and Savage. I kind of want to put it here. Great in most situations because it's really good. Like you could just negate an entire board off of 1 card. You know what? I'm gonna put it in great in most situations. I changed my mind. Forbidden Droplet, personally, one of my absolute favorite cards. I love the art a lot. It's such a cool card, and it was probably the most popular card in the format when I started to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Competitive a couple years ago. I remember this card was in every single deck in that current format, and because of that, it just left like a huge mark, and that's why it's one of my personal favorites. However, since the arrival of Kashtira Rice Heart, this card was literally dead in the water because you have to discard as cost in order to activate the card. And because the Right Heart banishes everything, you wouldn't be able to pay cost, so it's a brick. As a result, it fell out of popularity. It went from like $100 card, $80 card to like $15, which is insane to me. But now that a Rice Heart is banned, Shifter is still running around, and because of that, I don't think these cards like will skyrocket, but I definitely think it is really, really good. I at least think that it is in the great in most situations, but only time could tell, considering how popular Floowandereeze might become in this newly established format. And the good side to this is that you could kill, right? You can negate what you need to negate and still be able to kill your opponent. Enemy Controller. I remember Enemy Controller, man, when I was playing back in the day, because I took like 10-year break, 5-year break, or maybe like 7-year break from like the game. And I remember when Econ was a thing, right? And Econ tribute the Treeborn Frog in the standby phase or whatever phase you used to come back before the errata. And then tribute, take control of your monster, and then just special summon the Treeborn Frog again. The whole targeting thing isn't that good because a lot of cards these days have the protection from targeting. So I do think that, yes, you get to control a card, but it's just a more work change of heart, right? I rather, yes, take control of your opponent's monster, but like without targeting. So I think that it's worse than Forbidden Chalice. Yeah, you tribute a whole ass monster, but I'd rather tribute a monster than tribute my life points, right? In that sense. So I think that it's okay, but it's not bad. Fenrir is such a splashable card. One of the few cards in the current game where it could search a copy of itself. There's not a lot of cards that it could actually do that, which is crazy to me. Easily one of the best board breakers in the game, if not the best board breaker, right? Special Summon is not an activating effect. It attacks something, effect, banish something face down, which is super hard to get back if you banish an important card. On resolution, from an activating effect, you could activate his effect because it activates at the end. You could banish a card face down. It's just so good, right? Its special summoning effect is not once per turn. It is a level 7, which you could use a level 3 to synchro, so it's splashable in so many engines. And because of all those things, man, I definitely think this is maybe the third best card in the format, in my honest opinion. It is just too good of a card to pass up. I do think that kaijus are some of the best removal, non-targeting, not activating effect cards in the current format. It's just so easy to get over problematic boss monsters, gets over Goddess, Borolan, gets over any kind of big boss monster that your opponent could put out. It's just, the list goes on how good kaijus are. Love Kaiju's Godzilla theme for life. Yeah, I love the theme. I do think they're great in most situations because you're gonna just be able to remove anything that you don't want to deal with. Yeah, the Harpy's Feather Duster. I'm gonna be honest, man, and I'm gonna keep this simple. This is a fucking good card. Labyrinth is such a problematic card. I think that you need to be playing this card, or at least in the side, right, or some sort of back row removal if you're not playing Lightning Storm. I think it's great in most situations. I think it is situational in that aspect where you have to be playing like a trap heavy deck, or play a deck that sets like 1 or 2 cards. Because of how strong Labyrinth is, I think this card is just going to be in the format because of that. So I will put it in great in most situations, but because of that, it can be situational, right? If there's not a lot of decks in the format that don't use a lot of back row, right? Like, you're not going to use this against like super heavy, like, because they don't set anything. Right, their whole deck doesn't allow them to set anything, so this would be bad against them. But Labyrinth is strong. We've seen it in what it could do, Eradicator Epidemic. Like, that's just too much to like forget. Kurikara, man. I think Kurikara is one of the best cards to like really get over, right? It's great like a kaiju, right? Very easy to get over problematic cards. You could tribute Noir, the card that can't even be affected by anything. You could special summon this over it. So it's just like a kaiju, but it becomes situational, right? Where you have to be playing against a deck that activates a lot of effects. I do think that the banning of Kashtira or Rice Heart really is going to drop this in the current format. I do think that it's good, but the situational part is what kind of gets me, right? Yes, if you're playing against Pearly, 100%, you're going to side this card in. I don't think that it's bad. But the fact that something has to activate from your opponent and that monster has to remain on field in order to get this effect off is what kind of, turns me off from it, especially now that like a Rice Heart is gone. And this was the best card to get over a Rice Heart. So because of that, I do think that it is right in between here, right? In the maybe the best of okay, but not bad, but great in most situations, right? So I do think it'd probably be right there, right? It's situational depending on the deck that you play. Not every deck is going to be playing a card that activates their effect and then still remain on field, right? There's not a lot of cards like that. So I do think that that maybe this should be right here, and I mean, Pearly's just such a big threat. I think I might put it right there, actually. It's great in most situations, right? Like, what are, like, Barone, like, you can negate, you could summon over that. The Pearly Noir. Any, like, boss, like, Despater, right? Like, there's just so much. There's so much that you're going to be able to tribute over. I think I'd put it here. Lightning Storm. I mean, this card serves two functions, right? Or it can serve two functions, right? One being destroy all spells and traps, or two, destroy all attack position monsters. If it was just destroy all monsters, that'd be too good. Because it's literally Raigeki and Lightning Storm. Like, there's no way that your opponent is not going to end on like an attack position monster. Like they're gonna put Barone into attack mode. They're not gonna put that thing into defense mode. So because of that, I do think that maybe this card like falls like right here, right? Now that I'm thinking about it, I do think that Gameciel is better than Forbidden Droplet. So let's talk about Lava Golem. I think Lava Golem is in the same boat as like Winged Dragon Raw Sphere mode, because yes, you have to distribute two monsters your opponent controls. However, the card prevents you from normal summoning your set the turn that you activate that. I do think that this card is going to fall almost in that same category. However, it doesn't require such specifics, right? It's just two monsters. And a lot of end boards at least end on two monsters. Dragon Link end on, the Barone Savage or Savage Sphere mode, right? It's just, there's a lot of decks that end on two. For example, Branded Chimera end on the Fusion, the Chimera Beast, and the Mirror Sword Knight. Pearly usually end on, two monsters. There's just a lot of cards that end on two, and because of that, I think it's definitely a lot better than Sphere mode, but I don't think that it's better by a huge amount. It is a good amount, but not a huge amount. Yes, you commit that normal summon, or at least lose the ability to normal summon or set. So I do think that it is good. It is, I think, right here, right? I think that it's okay, but it's not bad, right? It's nowhere near bad. Raigeki. I mean, it's an old school card, very simple text, destroy everything. I think that this right here is probably, I'll put it like right here, right? Like, I think Raigeki is like okay. The reason that I think that it's okay is because a lot of monsters have protection from destruction. So Raigeki isn't really going to do much, right? And that's all it does. Unlike Lightning Storm can destroy spells and traps. So I do think that in that aspect, right, I think Raigeki is just a less better version of Lightning Storm. And on top of that, not a lot of spells and traps have protection from destruction. So I do think that, you know, Harpy's Feather Duster, because of the prevalency of Labyrinth, is definitely going to be good. But I don't think that Raigeki really keeps up with those. So I do think that it's a good card, and obviously you destroy everything your opponent controls in terms of monsters. And I do think that it's not bad. I would never say that Raigeki is bad, but it's not great, right? So I think it's like okay. It's an okay card. It might even be right here. Super Polymerization. Polymerization, phenomenal card, right? Being able to not being able to be responded to, clears the board, and the super poly targets, the most popular ones at least, are Garua, Mud Dragon, and maybe Starving Venom, right? Two darks, which is which is a really common attribute. Same type, same attribute, different names, very popular. Well, like those are gonna fuck up the specific archetype. Same type of different attributes. Or Mud Dragon, I always get the if it's like the other two, but like Mud Dragon is like not as specific, a little bit generic. But a lot of people do play around Super Polymerization. And there is a lot of time where some cards just can't even be affected by card effects. So Super Poly can be a dead card. But I think it's such a powerful card because it can't be responded to. So some cards that have the ability to Omni Negate, they won't even get a chance. Insert Takashi 69 fucking stupid. Insert the meme there. They're not even gonna get the chance. Super Poly not being able to respond it to and be able to clear the board pretty easily. I do think that it is still a very, very powerful card. There are some situations where it's just not as good, but it is going to be able to board wipe pretty easily, right? And actually, now I'm thinking about it, the more I think about Forbidden Droplet, the more it just keeps falling, right? So I think I'm gonna put Forbidden Droplet there actually, but Super Poly, it's all like it is so good in most situations. Triple Tactics Talent. I mean, everyone is running this card. I even seen some deck builds playing 3 copies of this. So because of that, I think this card, man, there's not really much to discuss. It's one of the best cards in the current format. All right, like in terms of like board breaking, like everyone is currently playing this card. Everyone loves this card. You could search it off of the thrust. You could open it and then just bait your opponent to have them hand trap you, or if they, you know, hand trap you in any kind of fashion, you just drop this on them, draw 2 cards, or you take control of their monster, non-targeting. It's Change of Heart, Pot of Greed, Delinquent Duo, right? If you had enough engine and you have enough engine to continue to play after a hand trap, you're gonna rip the next card out of your opponent's hand that would stop you from playing. There's just so much versatility in this card, and I do think that it's one of the best cards in the current format. This is gonna be my tier list, right? I would say everything is in pretty much order, right? These are the absolute best of the best cards in the current format in terms of board breakers. Great in most situations, you know, like they are phenomenal in their situations. They could be applied, but not, you know, every single situation, right? Harpy's Feather Duster is going to do nothing to Super Heavy Samurai. Kurikara is going to do nothing just to, you know, someone who doesn't activate their effects and the card remains on the field, right? There are a lot of situations where not every single situation applies, but they're good in most. These, okay, but not bad. These are cards that are good, right? And they serve very specific purposes, and those specific purposes are, you know, I wouldn't say that they're common, but they're not uncommon either. So I would definitely say that, you know, these are good in those very specific situations. As far as like bad, I think Winged Dragon of Raw Sphere Mode is one of the worst board breakers. I don't think it's like terrible, as in do not play this. But I do think that this card just has too much of a specification to summon, and it commits a lot in terms of the normal. But that is going to be the end of my tier list, guys. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys agree with me? Do you guys agree with this tier list? How do you guys feel about the current format in terms of board breakers? Let me know in the comment section below, guys. And do not forget to like, comment, subscribe. My name is Winster, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this content. You guys have a good rest of your day. Peace out.